Today, we're going to crack open the playbook of some of the world's best negotiators. We're talking top FBI agents and see how their high-stakes tactics can help us handle anger in our everyday lives. From a tense meeting at work to a fight over the dinner table. So let's kick things off with a scenario I'm pretty sure we've all been in. Oh yeah, you've been there, right? You're trying so hard to be logical, you're laying out all the facts, but it feels like you're talking to a brick wall. And it seems like the more you reason with them, the angrier they get. It's so frustrating and it feels totally impossible. So why does that happen? Well, it all comes down to what's happening inside our brains. In these moments of really high emotion, a little thing called an amygdala hijack occurs. Your amygdala, which is basically the brain's emotional command center, it just takes over. It completely sidelines the part of your brain that handles rational thought. And that's exactly why trying to win with logic against an angry person is pretty much doomed from the start. Here's a great way to picture it, using an analogy from psychologist Jonathan Haidt. Think of your rational mind as a rider, and your emotional mind as this huge 6-ton elephant. Now, you could have the best plan in the world, the clearest logic, but if that 6-ton elephant decides to charge, that tiny rider is absolutely powerless. The elephant is going to go where the elephant wants to go. So, if logic is out, what actually works? Well, the answer comes from a pretty unlikely place. A place where calming someone down isn't just a nice idea, it can literally be a matter of life and death. Right, so this is Chris Voss. For more than 20 years, his job was to talk to bank robbers, terrorists, kidnappers, basically people in the most extreme emotional states you can possibly imagine. The techniques he developed had to work, because if they didn't, people's lives were on the line. And guess what? They worked. And this quote right here, this is the core of his entire philosophy. It's not about winning. It's not about being right. It's about making the other person feel heard and understood. That one simple, powerful idea is the foundation for everything else we're about to talk about. Voss built his whole system around a concept he calls tactical empathy. So what on earth does that actually mean? It's really a strategic approach. It's not about feeling sorry for someone or feeling their pain. It's about actively working to understand their perspective, their feelings, and their motivations, so you can start to build trust and ultimately guide the conversation in a better direction. And this is a really, really critical distinction. Regular empathy, the kind we usually think of, is often about agreeing with someone or feeling sorry for them. Tactical empathy is completely different. You don't have to agree with them at all. You just have to show them that you understand their point of view. Acknowledging their reality is not the same thing as agreeing with it. Okay, so that's the big idea, but how do we actually do this? How do we put it into practice? Well, Voss gives us a really simple but incredibly powerful set of tools. We're going to zoom in on 3 core techniques that you can literally start using today. They are labeling, mirroring, and, just as important, mastering your tone of voice. First up, labeling. This is so simple. It's just naming the emotion that you're seeing. And you do it with these soft, gentle phrases like, it seems like, or it sounds like. When you do that, you're validating their feeling without being aggressive. And what's really cool is this actually helps to calm down their brain's alarm system, that amygdala, and helps bring their rational mind back online. So for example, instead of arguing about why the workload is what it is, you can just label the emotion you see. A simple, it sounds like you're feeling really overwhelmed by the workload. See? It's not an accusation. It's just an observation. It invites them to either confirm it or correct you. But either way, they feel heard. And that's what starts to dial down the tension. Okay, next up is mirroring. And this one is almost ridiculously simple. You just repeat the last 1 to 3 important words they just said, but you say it with a questioning tone. It's a subconscious signal that you're listening intently, and it encourages them to keep talking and explain more, all without you having to ask a direct question. Just look at the difference this makes. So someone says, I'm sick of being the last to find out about these changes. Now, you could ask, what do you mean by that? But that can sound a little aggressive, right? It might put them on the defensive. But if you just mirror them and say, find out about these changes with a curious tone, they almost can't help but explain further. And that's often when you find out what the real issue is. And finally, none of this, the labeling, the mirroring, none of it works without the right delivery. Research has shown that our words are only a tiny fraction of communication. A huge part of it, 38%, is our tone of voice. Voss calls this the late-night FM DJ voice. You know the one. It's calm, slow, reassuring. It's non-threatening, and it subconsciously makes people feel safe enough to talk. So you're labeling their feelings, you're mirroring their words, you're using that calm DJ voice. But what's the point? What are you actually trying to achieve? Well, there is a very specific breakthrough moment you're aiming for. The two magic words you are listening for are "that's right." Now pay close attention, because this is totally different from hearing "you're right." "You're right" is often just what people say to get you to shut up and go away. But "that's right," that's a moment of epiphany. It means you've described their world and their feelings so perfectly that they feel completely and totally understood. So how do you get there? Well, it's really a three-step process. First, you just listen, like really listen. Then you use your new tools, mirroring and labeling, to dig in and truly understand their perspective. And finally, you summarize their feelings and their situation back to them so accurately that the only possible response they can give is, "That's right." That is the moment the whole dynamic of the conversation can shift. So that's it. That's the FBI's secret weapon. It's not about winning an argument. It's about making the other person feel so deeply understood that the conflict just melts away. It's about changing the conversation entirely. So the next time you're facing that charging elephant of emotion, just remember this question. Acknowledging their reality first might just be the one thing that finally calms the beast.